Hi, everyone. So we're here for the Money Monday. We've been getting a lot of people actually telling me that they like to hear us talk about money. They were like excited about it. They're like, it's such a great idea. We love so that's awesome. I love the feedback. Okay,
We're super
so
excited to hear that.
I know because we love talking about it. So
Yeah.
perfect. So today we're going to talk about something that I like to talk about, Shelby too. So I always talk about car payments. So today we're going to explain to you, show you a real example of how much of it can affect your application. So Shelby checked some numbers for us. Okay.
So I looked into some numbers. So we decided to use 40,000 as the income in our scenario because we figure most New Brunswickers, they probably fall around, 30, 40,000 for your individual income or household income, depending on what you do. So we use 40,000 for it, and we decided to use a car loan as an example because most people have a car loan. This could be any loan. It could be a personal loan, could be a student loan, could be whatever. But 9 times out of 10, it's a car loan that is preventing it, or the
Mm-hmm.
car loan that is eating up what you could get approved for. So we use an example of a $500 a month car loan. That would represent a payment of $230 biweekly. Pretty much anything over like 205 biweekly, you're pretty close to $500 a month. You're between like 450, 500 for
Mm-hmm.
what we need to calculate because we have to take that biweekly payment times it by 26 as there's 2 months a year where you make three payments. So we need to average that out. And then we divide that number by 12, which gives us the monthly amount. So we're going to use $500 because most people's car payments fall around 200 biweekly, 190 biweekly, same thing. So about $500 a month, that would give you a maximum purchase price of $110,000 with a $40,000 income. So it doesn't give you a lot to work with unless you're looking to purchase in rural New Brunswick. But if you're looking to purchase in Moncton, Riverview, Dieppe, you're going to be really limited in those purchase options. So then we looked at, what if you make $40,000 and you don't really have any debt? Well, then the maximum that you could get would be $170,000. So that's a big difference between what your potential approval would or wouldn't be, depending on what you have for a car loan or if you have a car loan. We're not saying, don't go and buy a car. Obviously, if you need a car, go buy one. But you don't need to buy a brand new 2020 or 2021 car or even a 2019 or 2018 car.
No.
Because at the end of the day, is it worth that extra $500 a month? Is it worth getting approved for $60,000 less on your purchase price? There's a lot more to choose from in the price range of 170 than there is in 110. So that's basically it. I would recommend, like, if you do need to get a car, go with a used car. Everybody's always like, oh, the interest rates are higher with used cars.
I know.
Or, oh, you're not going to have a warranty. Well, I mean, if your used car is only a couple of years old, the dealership's going to make sure it's in good running order before they sell it to you anyway. So how many repairs are you really going to need to do on it during the next couple of years that you own it before you're going to want to upgrade again anyway?
That's so true. I feel like a lot of people they'll always use that excuse, the warranty, which you pay for. So really, it's nothing like you're paying for it. So yeah, you should get
buy
it.
like an extended warranty through a used car dealership anyway if you want to. So if you're really like, I need that warranty, well then buy the one from the used car dealership instead of the one at the brand new dealership.
I know, that's true. And like for the interest rates, I think we need to address that. Yes. A lot of people, that's the first thing they'll say because they're trying to be they're telling themselves why they should buy a brand new car. So they're finding like reasons. So they'll be like, oh, it's going to be so much higher for the interest rate. But like, you're not going out and getting a used car for, let's say, like $40,000. So like, you can't, it's not apples to apples. So if you're getting if you're getting a $12,000 car payment or $12,000 car, at, I don't know what the rates are, like 12% or 9. Like, I don't know.
I think
what
less than that. I think you'd be at like,
I don't know. Anyways, we don't do loans.
7.
So, yeah. Right. But like, let's say I did the calculations for 12% once. Cause I was like, is that really gonna like, and so $12,000 at, let's say worst case, like 12% interest rate versus $40,000 at 0% interest rate, you're still, it's a huge difference like on the payments per month and how long you need it for. So let's say you have like a, I don't know, $250 like dollars per month on 12, like you're going to pay it off in like 3 years. Like, I don't know, I'm just, I didn't do the math. So let's say,
but it's
like
true, you'll pay off the loan a lot quicker.
And like, and it's not going to affect your ratios that much, like as much. So
exactly.
And like it's usually like 2 or 3 years old. Like you can get a decent car that's still reliable for like, do you know what I mean? Under like
Yeah, for not a
10,000.
lot of money. My
Yeah,
sister
you don't
bought
need.
a 2000, and I think it was a 2013 Hyundai Accent. She bought it from a used car dealership. I think the total was like 9, 10,000, somewhere around there. It wasn't over 10,000. I know because I co-signed on her loan, but we'll get into that another day. But
Yeah,
it wasn't over
co-signers.
10,000. You know what I mean? Her payment was 103 bi-weekly, which if you want to look at that from a monthly perspective, that would give you a monthly payment of 223. So that's a big difference between $500 a month and $200 a month, or 223 a
And for
month,
how
right?
long? How long was the
I
loan
think it
for?
was only for like a couple of years, 3 years or
Yeah.
something like
Yeah.
that. She paid it off in full anyway,
Right. Yeah.
later
Yeah.
on, like a couple of months after, because she was able to.
Hmm.
But I
But
mean, I think it was only for like 3 years alone. So it wasn't a
yeah.
long time. And even if you were to stretch out that loan over 5 years or something like that instead,
Yeah.
you can
Yeah.
pay
Which
it off early. There's no prepayment penalty to
right.
pay it off. So if you want to keep your monthly payments down and stretch out that loan in order to get approved for
Right.
financing, then you can do
Exactly.
that.
Yeah.
And then once you do get around, $1,000, $2,000 left on it, well, you might have a year or two left on your finance agreement. You can just pay that in full if you want.
If you need to or if you want. And that's
Yeah.
another thing, actually. One of the things I think a lot of people don't realize is that having the smallest payment like available. So basically, if you're buying a car and you know you're going to buy a house afterwards, it's actually smarter to get the smallest payment per month. So if you stretch it out, that's a good way of just having the smallest payment so that it won't affect your ability to buy as much, like your purchase price. Yeah. So that's one of the things that I think a lot of people don't realize, because they're like, oh, like I'll get it for 3 years and pay it off, like, and that's probably good. But it's going to affect for 3 years time, whatever that payment is, we need to use that amount. But if you stretch it out, the same as like mortgages, I guess I always tell people that if you stretch it out, get the smallest payment possible, it's just a safety net. You can still make that bigger payment if you want to. So I just like the safety net option of like stretching it out. And then if you apply for a mortgage, you can we only need to use the smallest payment. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. We don't have to include all the extra payments that you're making per month to the dealership in order to get it paid down quicker.
But
you just use your minimum payment that reports to your credit bureau.
Mm-hmm.
And then that way as well, like you have more flexibility if something were to happen to your income, if you were to get laid off, if you were to lose your job, if you were to get, a big bill, because things happen when you own a house, you have to do repairs and things like that. It's a lot more expensive to heat your house than it is an apartment too. So in the middle of January, if you end up getting, a $500 or $600 bill because you weren't really paying attention to how much heat you're using, well, having that smaller payment is going to help you out a lot more when you do get a big bill or when you do get an unexpected expense that you need to take care of.
That's so true. I really actually like that if people do that. So you have the minimum payment, you pay more though.
Yeah.
So that creates a safety net. So if ever something happens, you don't actually have to make that like, do you know what I mean? Like if it's a car payment over 3 years, then it's this amount. But if you do it over 5 years instead, it's this amount. You can still make this amount, like the same payment. Yeah. But as soon as something happens, if
it back down to the minimum,
you can just like call them and be like, hey, I don't want to do the extra payments anymore. That's usually what I tell clients too, not to try to pay off their mortgage too soon. Like it's a good strategy that you want to, it's great. But I always tell people to kind of have a safety net. So like if they're wanting to pay it off in 12 years, let's put it over maybe 20, but make the payments as if it was 12 years. But then you still have that like safety net. If ever something happens, you can just make one phone call and they'll put it down to whatever it was, like over 20 years. So
yeah, exactly. Way better to do it that way.
Yeah. Because then you have, I love safety nets. I love cushion, financial cushion.
Me too.
So that's a good way to do it. But
yeah.
Yay.
I find it is.
Cool. So yeah, no, I love to talk about car payments, and I feel like giving a concrete example is probably like the best way for people to understand like how much and why we're always like car payments. Like that's why we don't like to see car payments.
So much of what you could get approved for, you know what I mean? Like it just people don't think a $500 a month car payment is a lot because that's your typical car payment. And so they're always like, oh, it's just $500 a month, or oh, it's just $400 a month. Well,
Mhm.
that made a big difference in your approval amount. Like that's a
Mhm.
$60,000 difference. Yeah, you can come up with $500 a month, but you can't come up with 60 grand cash. So
Right, right. So it's like it's bigger. And a lot of people they don't know that side until it happens and they're like, "Oh, like
and then they're like, oh, I wish I would have known this before I bought my brand new 2020 Jeep Wrangler.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly." I just find like a secondhand car, whatever year it is, it doesn't need to be a beater. Like you can buy a secondhand car that's reliable.
Yeah, you can buy a new one that's
Oh,
nice.
oh my gosh. Well,
Yeah.
like what
Or
we
a
did, it
newish
was
one.
yeah, newish, but like we bought like it was 2 years old, I think, when we bought it or three, and it was pretty much brand new. The only difference from, or I think it was, yeah, it was like 2 years old maybe. And we saved like $15,000.
Wow.
If we were to go with a brand new, it was $15,000 more than what we
Yeah.
paid, which was 2 years old. And we still had a warranty, which because it was a lease return. And then the person had already like paid for the warranty. So basically we like, to me, that was a good deal
Yeah,
for
I
what
would
we're
say
looking
so.
for. And the only difference, because they obviously got me to try like to test drive the brand new one. It was like, okay, I'll do it, not because I knew I wasn't gonna buy it, but I was like, okay, let's compare.
Yeah,
And
see what
then
the difference is.
right, and the only difference I found, like literally, maybe there was a few like the look of it, and so I don't know what it was. Anyways, the only thing I noticed differently was that you could go back on the radio. You could actually like, if you know, like if you listen to something and like, what did they say? And you can like almost like
Oh,
PVR. It was like a PVR for radio.
that's
And it
cool. I
was
didn't
like,
know they had
whoa.
that.
I was like, that's awesome. But then it was like, it's not worth 15 grand. Like,
No, how often
right?
are you going to use your PVR for your radio? Not that
For like
often.
for the
Like,
few times, yeah, that I would use it. I was like, no, that's a joke. Like, oh my gosh. But that's literally the only thing that I noticed that was like a different
wow.
feature.
Mhm.
Like, isn't that funny? Anyways,
Yeah.
that was my experience.
And
But
that
it was
feature
like
would have
no
cost you
brainer.
extra to get in the new car too. You know what I mean? Because that wouldn't have been
Probably,
included in the base price.
probably.
That would have been like an add on, like, oh, do you want to add this to the radio or something? Like, I
I
doubt that
know.
would have been a base price
So
feature.
funny. Whatever. Regardless, it's not
Yeah.
worth 15 grand. So it's just to say,
No.
like check out the options, like actually look at it. Don't just throw out things like, oh, the rate's gonna be higher because it's a used car, like that and the the
Yeah.
what am I
The warranty.
warranty. Yeah,
Yeah,
let's see.
that and the warranty. Don't use the interest
Those
rate
are
or the
not
warranty as an
real
excuse to justify a
reasons.
brand new purchase. You know
No,
what I mean?
no.
Like it's just if you want, it depends on what your goals are. If you want to be able to get that house first, or do you want to have that brand new nice looking car? You know what I mean? Like,
Right. And
is it
I'm not against buying a brand new car because
yeah.
I've done it before. Like one of my first, well, no, I drove my old Saturn, 2001 Saturn for like years. So that, yeah. And then I
Yeah.
bought once I was working here for a little bit. But still I did that. Actually, I did that. And maybe like a year or two after, one of my best friends, she came to pick me up in her new car and was like, whoa, like what year? Like, cause we all do that, right? Like, wow, like your brand new car. And she's like, no, actually it's like, I think it was like 3 or 4 years old. And she's like, it's only like $100 biweekly. And she's like, I made sure for 3 years. And she's like, I made sure that like, if ever I lost my job and whatever, that I could actually afford it on EI. And I was like,
Yes.
that was like, to me, I think that was the moment that I realized I'm like, that's the smartest thing I have ever heard in my life. I was
Yes.
so
And
proud of her. I was like, oh my gosh, like,
that is
why did I
honestly
buy a
such a
brand
good
new? I
idea to
felt
do.
like stupid having bought a brand new car after that.
Oh
Like,
no.
so that
But
was my moment. That was like,
yeah.
oh my gosh. And I think it was like in 2012, maybe that happened. And I felt like, oh my gosh, I'm never gonna buy a brand new car again, like ever again. I mean, maybe, but like not just because. Do you know what I mean? Like I'm
Not
gonna,
just to get a brand new car, yeah.
because I don't
And I
really
mean, like,
like
I think a
cars
lot
that
of
much.
people should apply that in their lives, saying, like, can I afford this if I were to lose my job? Can I afford this on EI? Because when you think about it, if you look at the financial collapse that happened in Alberta a number of years ago when the oil prices started to tank, a lot of people went financially under. They had mortgages that were worth more than their house, which that's no fault of their own in a lot
Yeah.
of cases. But they also had $70 or $70,000 truck loans. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Nobody needs a $70,000 truck. It's a beautiful truck, but do you need it? No, you don't need it. It's just as fine as a $15,000 truck or a $20,000 truck. And you probably wouldn't have had had issues with the truck loan if it was 15,000 or 20,000 versus a 70,000, because at 70,000 you're paying $700 a month. That is your mortgage payment. That's why you can't get approved for a mortgage.
Oh my gosh, yeah, that happens a lot. No, it's just perspective, and I think a lot of people don't really think it through. They're just like, oh, I can afford it, right on, like I make so much money, whatever. And it's like, okay, but like you always have to plan. It's annoying, but you need to plan for the worst case scenario, and then you always get the best case scenario, right? Like you always
because it's always going to be better than what you plan for. If you plan for best case scenario, you're always going to be disappointed because nothing, I mean, maybe one thing is going to work out best case scenario, but pretty much nothing else will.
No.
And that's just really poor planning to do.
I think so. I feel like even if you can afford it each month, I think this year, well, like last year, the pandemic definitely
showed a lot of people that they need to reconsider their financial choices.
Because if you make this much money and all of a sudden in 1 month you're not making that much money and you can't pay your bills because you need to make that much each month, like to be able to make those payments, then you're not actually in a good financial situation. If you need to like be making the same amount,
$5,000 a month to make all your bills paid and to make ends meet, then you're not in a good financial situation, because how many jobs are going to pay you that much money? You know what I mean? There's not that many jobs,
if you don't have if you don't have
Yeah.
a safety net, like if you don't have a plan B and you're actually just living off of how much you're making each month and like didn't build your cushion yet, then that's not a good way to live. I don't think so.
I find it's a stressful way to live personally if you were to do that, because I mean, then you're always waiting for that next paycheck to come in. You know what I mean? You want to be able to have some money saved up in the bank, so that way you're not sitting there checking your bank account 2 days before payday being like, oh shoot, I only have $20 left. And you stretch that $20 2 days. You know what I mean? It's better if you can kind of short-term pain for long-term gain, live as cheap as you can for a set amount of time. And then you can go out and you can get that extra little thing because you've got a financial cushion set up. So that way, if anything does happen, you can recover from it. You can recoup from it.
Yeah. And that's when you should be able to like enjoy, I feel like, nicer things in life. And then if you ever want to buy your 70,000 because you love trucks and it's like whatever, but like down the road after you like build your like wealth pyramid, like
eventually get those nice expensive things that you want to buy, you know what I mean?
Don't start with that, because you're just going to do the opposite. You're going to put yourself in, like, if as soon as something happens, you're going to be like why did I?
Start trying to build it with something that doesn't depreciate in value. When you buy a brand new vehicle and you drive it off the dealership lot, it loses 20% of its value right then and there because you just drove it off the lot. So
yeah, because sometimes I'll tell people like, look, your options, if you don't qualify, is like you can sell your car. If you think that's an option for you.
Yeah.
But
not everybody has that option.
It's because it like usually they can't sell it for what they actually owe. So then they're like, well, no, I'm not going to do that. So yeah, it shows right there. It's like, okay, well, not a good investment.
Yeah, because if you buy a brand new 2020 or whatever, and you bought it for $50,000, nobody's going to buy it from you for 50 grand. You know what I mean? Like the dealership's not even going to buy it back from you for 50 grand. So
because you added the taxes and the warranty and then whatever else, like
exactly, whatever add-ons you wanted, and then the fact that it appreciates the second that you purchase it,
and like freight, like just delivering it. I think it's like I remember seeing on my, it was like $1,200, like 1,200 just to get it delivered. Like it's just it adds up so much. Anyways.
It does. It really does.
Yeah.
And then, and then before you know it, you know what I mean? You've put $70,000 into this vehicle and you can only maybe get 20 or 30 from it.
And like you're attached to that, like you have to it's an obligation. Like it's a big financial decision, like 70 grand on a car. Like anyways, that's just me. Cause I'm not a car person. I just feel like, why would I spend that much money on a car? Unless eventually I'm like, look, I'm at this place in my life, like all of the other stuff is taken care of, have my cushion, I have whatever. Now I can like spend my money that I worked hard, I mean, which I sacrificed for years until I actually
able to get to that point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyways, That's
Yeah.
my take on it.
That's our 2 cents on it.
Ah, yay. Ah, I feel so better. I love talking about it. I get super passionate when I talk about car payments or like all that stuff, like just making like thinking about your financial decisions.
Yeah, just making better, like, no, I mean, better financial decisions, honestly. I don't want to say that it's a bad financial decision to purchase a car or to, put your money into something that makes you happy, obviously.
Mhm.
But long term, is that going to benefit you? Probably not. So if it's
Mhm.
not going to benefit you long term, is it really a good financial decision?
Yeah. Yeah. So something to think about. Anyways, I'm excited about this one. Hopefully
Yes, me
everyone learned
too.
something here. So we'll see you next week.
Yeah, see you next week. Thank
Thank
you.
you. Bye.
Bye.